said that the best organizations are ones that you're not even aware of existing because they're flowing so well. So in immersing myself in this work about chaotic systems thinking, I realized that it was very linked into creativity. Creativity is actually very aligned with chaotic systems. And that's another part of my background. So my mom, who's in the audience today, my mom was a little concerned about me when I was, again, about 4 years old. I was a klutz. She was worried I didn't have a sense of spatial relations, and she put me into dance class. But the joke, of course, among most dancers is that if it's not choreographed, people are tripping all over each other. But dance was my foray into creativity, and it was one of the things that helped me understand there's really nothing sexy or adorable about creativity. Creativity requires an incredible amount of discipline. It's tedious, it's sweaty, it's gritty, as Angela Duckworth was talking about in the recording that we saw earlier. And it's hard, it's often solitary, and you're banking on some big ideas that you hope will take off. So one of my favorite modern dancers is Twyla Tharp, dancer choreographer. She has a wonderful book, which I highly recommend, called The Creative Habit. And in her book, one of the things she points out is this statement, that before you can think out of the box, you have to start with the box. Creativity has rules. And you need those rules and those boundaries so that you can rebound out of them. Again, this idea of a chaotic system and structure. And Twyla Tharp has also talked about the fact that creativity is an act of defiance. So that got me to think about how in our work environments, in corporations today, we say that we want to be defiant. Companies say they want to be disruptive, right? They want to be innovative. And yet they treat creativity as this kind of foo-foo, fluffy add-on, something you slap on at the end of a process. And I really admired the work of scholars Colin Fisher and Teresa Amabile, who have talked about the distinctions between cognitive creativity and improvisational creativity. What I'm finding is that organizations, companies, in our work environments, we aren't taking creativity seriously enough. As Charlie Mingus, the jazz bassist, once said, making the simple complicated is commonplace, but making the complicated simple, awesomely simple, that's creativity, and that's really hard to do. So in our VUCA world, our world which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, we need more creative structures, more chaotic structures to allow us to navigate that. So here's a question for us to think about, maybe over lunch. What if creativity wasn't left in the workshop or in the studio? But what if creativity was part of our everyday work? In order to think about that more fully and thoroughly, we have to go back to the way we educate. And for a lot of us, this is the memory of the physical environment of how we started out in a school environment. Very structured, very orderly, learning to stay in line. And then we graduate people from that environment into this environment, into more boxes. And we still ask people to think outside the box, but we put them in boxes. And we've trained ourselves to be in boxes. Well, as I've mentioned, I'm a professor at Philadelphia University. Philadelphia University was formerly the Philadelphia College of Textiles and Science. This is actually a photograph of students at the Philadelphia College of Textiles and Science in 1905 in a spinning lab studio. And one of the things that I think is remarkable about this photograph, and a lot of the photographs about how students at the old textiles learned, was very kinesthetic learning. People were up and active and engaged and touching and feeling. So a lot of what we've done at Philadelphia University is to tap into that legacy. So in the Strategic Design MBA program, for example, this is an MBA environment where we're constantly up and at the whiteboard. We're testing ideas, trying to encourage everybody to understand this statement, that if you don't make mistakes, you aren't really trying. You're supposed to make mistakes. This is the time and space to make mistakes. So hopefully our strategic design MBA students will graduate and contribute to new work environments. About a dozen of these graduate students and I were in Finland and Estonia last week, as I mentioned. And it was an incredible trip because we were working with some students at Aalto University in Helsinki on a project around the future of work. And John New from the Hub accompanied us because he was really interested in how other people around the world were thinking through this issue. And some of the things we learned as we were thinking through the future of work were things that we were projecting could possibly happen, were things such as more humble leadership, the role of story in creating more meaningfully to people, perhaps a blurred boundary between our workspaces and our learning spaces, perhaps even a return to an apprenticeship model, as well as less of an importance on where we work, because digital platforms are now making for a lot of you already to work very flexibly, but more of pondering the question of why we work. So kind of hearkening to Simon Sinek's Golden Circle. So I'm going to put forth that the future of work and learning will look more like jazz. And if it looks more like jazz, that means we'll have more emergent leadership. There'll be more adaptive processes. We will be more servant experts with each other. We'll know how to recede to the back and go up front when necessary. We will understand improvisation and value it and create places and spaces in our work environments. We will allow for self-organizing in our companies, if they're going to be called companies. We will be ambiguous friendly. A lot of my work now in research is understanding how do we help students to navigate ambiguity? How do we help them to get comfortable with it? We will curate our education and our work. We will embrace being bricoleurs and making something new from the old. We will understand that collage is a value because there's not a whole lot that's essentially new anymore. It's all in how we recombine it. We'll understand that the workspace is sacred, and jazz musicians on the bandstand embrace that idea because in jazz, in improvisation, you're neither in the past nor in the future. You are exactly in the moment, and that's a sacred space. And to view our work as that will be remarkable. We'll value mistakes. So I started out referencing a Horace Silver album from 1961, Doin' the Thing. And Horace Silver was a favorite of my dad's. And going to end with a reference to an album he recorded 4 years later called Song for My Father in 1965. It's a beautiful jazz ballad. If you don't know it, download it. It's really nice. So in a lot of ways, this reflection has been for me a song from my father, who introduced me unknowingly at the time to complexity, something that I've tapped into and come full circle to. And I hope that sharing these ideas with you all will be in some ways a ballad for the future of work. Thank you.